The standard answer to "what are human psychics like" tends to be non-existent. The general assumption is that due to a pileup of evolutionary quirks, no single species of Terran origin has any noteworthy psychic presence. This is practically correct, in that you currently won't ever run into a human who will initiate a psychic connection, but functionally it could not be more wrong. Despite their utter lack of any outwardly identifiable psionic abilities, every single human who makes it to 10 years of age without significant neural damage effectively has undergone more psychic training than the special operatives of most species undergo before their first mission. To better understand how the apparent contradiction between humans have no identifiable psionic abilities and every human child has undergone rigorous psionic training is not a complete impossibility, it helps to be aware of how the human brain is structured. Skipping over a significant amount of details, the human brain consists of two quasi-independent components, with a certain amount of supporting hardware that can override higher functions in situations where instinctive, instant responses are necessary. This split allows humans a number of advantages in dedicating certain areas of neural circuitry to specific tasks, while also performing secondary tasks at the same time. Human imagination is a clear-cut example of this, but that is an aside for another time. What humanity as a whole hasn't been aware of until very recently is that both of the main components are independently psionically active, and almost exclusively, each component uses its own psionics to alternatingly attack the other component or defend itself from the other component's incoming attacks. For a human being, these attacks are rarely even acknowledged in the first place. The few cases where such attacks are even noticed are often dismissed as the call of the void, a phenomenon that is fairly well documented in human psychology. Since the psionic component to this phenomenon was unknown to humanity, one major theory as to why these sudden self-destructive or violent urges persisted into present-day humanity was that they acted as a sort of self-test, a way for any individual to automatically verify they were still in control of their actions, while marking anyone who wasn't as a social outcast, thus making excessively impulsive individuals less likely to procreate. While the above theory is a reasonable assumption as to the function of these urges, and as best as can be observed correct, these attacks have a secondary effect. Since the human mind is effectively under attack from early infancy, humans by necessity have utterly ludicrous resistance against psionic attacks, with multiple credible reports citing a human victim of attempted psionic manipulation, not even noticing the attempted intrusion. At the same time, though, the human mind develops more complex and dangerous attacks in response to its own steadily increasing resilience. By the time a human is considered legally mature, the attacks they unknowingly subject themselves to would be enough to add a full volume to the black codices, a trait that holds true for every human that has been tested so far. As a personal anecdote and an aside, I was present for the first time the psionic activity from a human volunteer test subject was recorded through artificial means. The connection lasted for less than half a second before the safety features of the recorder forcefully cut it off and initiated a facility-wide lockdown. Meanwhile, the subject reported she had only felt a brief tickle to the back of her neck before the alarms went off, causing significant distress. Thankfully, the facility lockdown procedures did not involve any kind of self-destruct, or I would probably not be standing here today. Also, the subject in question took the chaotic situation well, all things considered. As previously mentioned, the human neural layout also has some supporting hardware near the point where the spine connects to the brain. This section of the brain also has a role in this remarkable system, in that it tightly controls the psychic activity to not reach out. Given the ever-escalating nature of the attacks, this aspect is also trained to an excessive degree, but only in a single direction, inwards. This explains to a significant degree why a human can walk around unshielded without causing every being with a shred of psionic receptiveness to immediately suffer total neurological collapse. But it comes with a major caveat. The protection offered by the supporting hardware is, in a healthy adult human, of such magnitude that a typical overmind-style psionic would strain immensely to try and break through, if it only were directed outward. Instead, a human barely has any means to prevent intrusion, but short of traumatically terminating the connection, there is virtually no way to escape the psionic landscape of a human mind. once a connection has been established. Combining all of the above findings has given a working theory as to why members of a certain species that shall not be named in this report keep violently self-terminating in the middle of meeting with human trade delegations, while also pulling the morality of these individuals into question. The species in question has been under investigation for illegal psionic manipulation for some time, following a string of high-profile trade deals that were noted as excessively in favor of the aforementioned species. While the investigation is still ongoing, the events on the Excelsis station, specifically, the case where an entire trade delegation suddenly tried to attack the armed guards present in the negotiation room and were summarily terminated in self-defense, suggest that in their attempts to manipulate the human delegation, they established a link. On the one hand, all their attempts at manipulation failed, while breaking the connection would have had consequences that they wouldn't be able to simply play off. On the other hand, one of the human delegates reported having a call of the void moment when, in a moment of distraction, they looked at one of the guards. According to the report from the delegate in question, they briefly wondered if they could wrestle the weapon away from the guard before getting shot, but dismissed this notion as just one of those ridiculous things your mind comes up with when you're bored. As an aside, the delegate in question had a supporting role that often involved awaiting instructions, and noted that they sometimes entertained themselves with unlikely scenarios. It is my current theory that, in addition to the attempted link for the purposes of psionic manipulation, the members of the group also maintained a local connection to their co-conspirators. When the above thought occurred, it spread through these connections, until a follow-up impulse overrode the self-control of the trade delegation and forced them to act out the idea, leading to the tragic events. As a personal aside, I want to stress that none of the above events were under conscious control of the human individuals present at the scene. First, humans have neither awareness nor control over the relentless assault they subject themselves to, and their natural state already prevents others from being needlessly affected. Second, as unintentionally demonstrated, the only psionic abilities common to humanity are exclusively reactionary. They cannot reach out, but they can and will utterly destroy anyone foolish enough to try and intrude upon the sanctuary of the self. In conclusion, I do not have any reason to believe the accusations being leveled against the human delegation in this case, and recommend inspecting the members of the human delegation for externally observable evidence of intrusion. Just make sure to not reach too deep. Professor Ziebtal, expert witness in the court case following the Excelsis tragedy.